scientifically true.
Right.
I know that laughter is great medicine.
You think it's directly linked to extending your life?
You know, it's funny because it's funny.
I love
Speaking of
it.
laughter.
Oh, I'm an easy date, you know?
That's great. It's funny because a friend of mine who's been a stand-up comedian since he was 5 years old, you know, says, and he's from the old school of comics, you know, the Borscht Belt, and he says, you know, he points to all these comedians from his generation who are, you know, 87 years old and still going out and doing stand-up, and George Burns is 102 or whatever, you know.
Right.
And he's convinced, you know, it's because they spend their life laughing. And I got to say, I consider myself, I'm grateful every day that my life and all this work that I do with all of these projects is I go to work and I laugh every day. That's what I do, you know, and
you have, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to get into a little bit. You have a really unique story of how you got here, and I kind of want to share that with everybody. Would you mind?
You mean in terms of my history
Right.
as an improviser in this business? I was a history major at the University of California at Berkeley, and at that time, across the bay in San Francisco was a very popular improvisational theater called The Committee. And so we, as you know, college students would go watch The Committee all the time. It was like the place to go because they were so funny and so hip. And anyway, I read about a workshop at The Committee, and I went over there and I thought, oh, this would be fun to do. So I got on the stage and I started doing an improv, and the guy who was the director of The Committee and ran the workshop, his name is Del Close. Del loved my work, and he said he started, you know, encouraging me to come back, and told me at some point, as soon as there was an opening in the company, he would hire me into The Committee.
And that was a huge thing because Del was working with everybody at the time, right?
Well, Del started out as a very young guy himself in improvisational theater with, you know, in the early days with the, you know, the icons of it. And then, you know, it's a very close-knit world and family, the world of improvisational theater. So Del then went back to Chicago to direct Second City, where he directed John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis and Gilda Radner and the whole Saturday Night Live gang. And
she was amazing.
Yeah. And then, you know, was at it long enough to also mentor people like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and work, you know, taught improv to Stephen Colbert.
And so he just finds you, and he's like, you're my gem, and he takes you under his wing?
Yeah.
I
Kind
love
of like that.
I love that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And Del himself was, you know, if you talk to all of these people who have been mentored by him, you know, he had that kind of charisma and kind of obvious genius to you know, to just inspire the best in you.
Wow.
You know,
You must have learned so much from him working with somebody like that. It's
you know, the
fantastic.
work I do at Laughter for a Change is, to this day, every day I am, you know, Del's words and Del's spirit are alive in the work I do, I must say.
I can imagine. If you have any questions for Ed Greenberg of Laughter for a Change, give us a call at 1-800-336-2225. We'll be back on La La Land with Brett and Nett on CRN Digital Talk.
This is a special alert to all